Yeah, thank you so much, Sean. This is such an important issue, and I just want to start by saying that this is an issue that is important to every single one of us as Americans. This is not a partisan issue. It has to do with the integrity and the strength of our democratic republic. And it lays out this over 100 documents that you're referencing that I released, declassified and released, spells out in great detail exactly what happens when you have some of the most powerful people in our country directly leading at the helm, President Obama and his senior-most national security cabinet, James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, and Susan Rice and others, essentially making a very intentional decision to create this manufactured, politicized piece of intelligence with the objective of subverting the will of the American people, who in November of 2016 delivered a historic victory to President Trump, defeating Hillary Clinton. And President Obama and his team, their goal was to essentially not accept the decision of the American people and to use this manufactured, politicized intelligence as a means to enact what would become essentially a years-long coup against President Trump. You have gone into great detail over these years of what the effects of this document and this decision have resulted in. Obviously, a years-long Mueller investigation that cost taxpayers almost $40 million, 2 congressional impeachments, endless smears and attacks against not only President Trump, but his family. He had senior members of his team who were investigated, some arrested and jailed. We had heightened and increased tensions between the United States and Russia. The list goes on and on about the consequences of President Obama and his senior cabinet members politicizing intelligence once again, and I say these words very clearly, to enact what was essentially a years-long coup, subverting the will of the American people in that election in November. Now, you referenced this President's Daily Brief document that was drafted for President Obama in early December that reaffirmed what the intelligence community professionals, as you say, had been assessing for the previous 6 months leading up to the election, which was that Russia neither had the intent nor capability to essentially hack the outcome of the U.S. election. As you said, President Obama's political appointees pulled that document before it could be published, and it has not been published until we released it today. And the very next day after they pulled that document, President Obama called a National Security Council cabinet meeting to discuss how Russia interfered with the election. Again, this is the first week of December.
9th,
President
right?
Trump had already won. Correct.
This is the December 9th meeting.
That's exactly right. The December 9th meeting, we declassified and released what they call the summary of conclusions from that meeting. Then DNI James Clapper took the lead on what President Obama wanted done, and which was essentially create a document that tells us not if, but how Russia interfered with the election. President Obama delivered the conclusion that he wanted the intelligence community to reach and directed them to find and essentially create and manufacture the intelligence to support the conclusion that President Obama wanted to deliver to the American people.
In a bold and highly discussed statement, U.S. Representative and 2020 Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard has come forward with powerful accusations suggesting that former President Barack Obama was deeply involved in shaping and supporting some of the most controversial actions of recent U.S. administrations, many of which, she claims, are being wrongfully attributed solely to Presidents Biden or even Trump. Tulsi Gabbard, known for her independent thinking and willingness to challenge her own party, has long been critical of the establishment forces in Washington, D.C. However, in this new revelation, she goes a step further, claiming that Barack Obama has been operating behind the scenes, influencing key decisions in foreign policy, national security, censorship, and even domestic surveillance. In various interviews and public appearances, Gabbard has pointed to a pattern of Obama-era policies continuing under the Biden administration, including the rise of the intelligence community's power, the militarization of U.S. foreign policy, and the coordination between big tech and federal agencies to suppress dissenting voices. She argues that the public has been misled to believe that these policies were born under Biden, when in reality, the groundwork was laid during the Obama years, and he never truly stepped away from power. One of her main allegations revolves around the expansion of surveillance programs and the alleged political weaponization of federal agencies like the FBI, CIA, and DOJ. Gabbard notes that while these agencies are supposed to be nonpartisan, they've been increasingly involved in targeting political opponents, monitoring U.S. citizens, and creating a culture of fear, all rooted, she believes, in an ideology developed under the Obama administration. Gabbard also referenced the infamous moment in 2020 when Barack Obama publicly endorsed Joe Biden, not just as a candidate, but as someone who would continue his legacy. She argues that this was more than political theater. It was a strategic move to place a figurehead in the White House while keeping the real architects of policy behind the curtain. In her view, Biden's administration is merely an extension of Obama's third term, run by loyalists and advisors who served under Obama and still take cues from him. Additionally, Tulsi has warned that this shadow influence extends beyond politics and into culture and media. She suggests that Obama-era networks have continued shaping narratives in mainstream news and social platforms, subtly suppressing alternative viewpoints in the name of unity or misinformation control. Critics of Gabbard claim her remarks are conspiratorial and lack direct evidence, while her supporters argue she is speaking the truth that others are too afraid to voice. Regardless of where one stands, her revelations have reignited debate over the true power structures in Washington and whether democracy is being driven by elected officials or unelected elites operating from the shadows. Tulsi Gabbard's claims are a stark reminder that transparency, accountability, and open dialogue are essential in a healthy democracy. Whether or not Obama is behind it all, the demand for truth and clarity in governance continues to grow.